Greetings from just outside the town of Gunnison, Colorado. Now, I'm here in Colorado to drive this Kia Stinger GT. It was a standard press launch. Now, normally, after a press launch, I would fly home. No, not this time. I am driving home from Colorado all the way to Portland, Oregon. That's 1,200 miles. Why? Well, this Stinger is called a GT, so let's see how it does on a grand tour. This should be exactly what it's made for. Now, this is also an all-wheel drive model, and it's kind of snowy here in Colorado and throughout the American Northwest. Weather back in Portland isn't exactly peachy yet. So, in that case, all weather, grand touring, perfect match. Now, along the way, I'm going to be cutting in with little shortcuts about everything you need to know about this car, about its comfort, about its fuel economy, performance, how this new touchscreen interface works, just about everything. Because although you can get a lot from a car just by a brief drive, you know, a big, long, 3-day, 1,200-mile road trip has a way of really shaking things out, both good and bad. So, join me along for the ride. Hope it's going to be a fun one. Well, as you can see, I'm definitely no longer in Crested Butte, Colorado anymore. It's also definitely not 20 degrees anymore. It's actually quite warm out here. I am just outside Moab, Utah, which is very interesting, but let's take a moment to talk about the Stinger's cargo space. Now, it's one thing to look really cool. It's another thing to be powerful and fun to drive, but for a grand tour like I'm on, it would be nice if it had a lot of cargo capacity, and yes, it does, because this is not a sedan. No, it is a hatchback. And this has 23.3 cubic feet of space in the trunk. That compares to about 14 to 15 that you'd usually get in a sports sedan. Now, admittedly, some of that extra space is up above here where the cargo cover is protecting, but otherwise you can still fit quite a bit back here. This is my rather large, definitely have to check suitcase. You could fit another one in here, and then probably another maybe rollerboard on its side or a duffel bag like this. Definitely more than enough for, 2 to actually 4 people to get away for a vacation. Now, when you put the seats down, you have 40.9 cubic feet of space. That's certainly not wagon-like, but again, you have more space, more versatility than you would from a regular sedan. Well, as I'm driving the Stinger GT through the absolutely gorgeous Utah State Road 128, I'm in a beautiful Red Rock Canyon. There is a river to my right. So let's talk about how quickly you can drive through this road and, just dispense with it. For starters, I love the steering in this car. Albert Bierman, formerly of BMW, really did a spot-on job on this car. It's quick on the turn, and you can actually feel what the tires are doing. Even though this car is currently riding on winter tires, the car is just so balanced. You really get a feeling for what it's doing. You feel part of it. And hey, that's what you want from a sports sedan. Now, this one does have all-wheel drive. Typically in normal driving mode, you have 40 up front, 60% of the power going to the rear. If you put it in sport mode, which is what I'm in right now, you get about 80% to the back. Now, the nice thing about that is this really is a rear-biased all-wheel drive system, and I definitely felt that yesterday when it wasn't 60 degrees, it was 20, and I was driving around ice and snow. This car was still extremely happy to kick its rear out and really let you drift it and have some fun, really enjoy that rear bias, which is, hey, what we really want from a great sports sedan. And a road like this, that's exactly what this Stinger GT is. So we moved on from Moab, and I'm now deep in the heart of Utah. I'm about 100 or so miles south of Salt Lake City, and it's gotten colder here, and the snow has reappeared. So figured let's take a moment to discuss driving and having some fun with this car in the snow. But to do that, I'm going to need to go back in time to yesterday. So take it away, me from the past. Okay, traction control off here. That means only I control the throttle. Stability control still on, so I do have some save the bacon. Really, on ice like this, you kind of just have to react to it and let the car tell you what it needs to do, whether you're going to steer in or more counter steer, kind of like that. Coming in for braking zone now. At this point, the smooth bits you want to avoid, because that's probably ice. You actually want to drive for snow a bit. There you go. And then just gun it, because why not? Tap a brake, and now we're coming in sideways here. No problem. Is this the smoothest and quickest way to go about this course? No, it is not. But it is quite snowy, and it is quite fun. Yee! Ooh. You know, if you have a big open snowy field and a powerful, mostly rear-wheel drive car to play around in, I highly recommend it. All right, now before, it was sport mode with traction control off, but stability control on. Now the stability control's off. Let's see the comedy of errors that ensues. Nope. I have not killed it yet. Let's see. Still plenty of a lap to go, though. Ah! Whoa! Could have gone better. Could have gone better. Okay. We'll learn. We'll learn. Oh my God.
Good job.
So what we've learned here is stability control in a car does an awful lot. Traction control off, I think you could live without that. Just don't be a moron. But stability control off, well, you're going to have a whole heck of a lot of talent. Or perhaps, well, definitely more accurately, more talent than I have.
Once you're buckled and ready, you're good to go.
Well, it's day 2 of my drive from Colorado to Oregon here in the Kia Stinger GT. And it's very early in the morning. I have my very unremarkable hotel coffee. So I thought I'd take a moment to discuss the features of this car. Now, this is a range-topping Kia GT 2, that's its trim level. Costs around $51,000 with the all-wheel drive system. And since it's 38 degrees outside, I'm enjoying my heated seat, my heated steering wheel. Of course, I have this mini multi-way power seat. There's a thigh extender on it. There are movable side bolsters as well as lumbar. It's a pretty comfortable seat, actually. I would like perhaps a little more adjustment going this way to have more of a Formula One-like driving position, but you know, that's a nitpick for me. Power adjustable steering wheel here, and this steering wheel is absolutely fantastic. It feels a little smaller for a car like this, and it just feels great in your hands. Now, because this is a loaded car, it has all of the active safety features. Now, that is not unusual, especially for a car that costs this much. But how do they actually work? Well, as of right now, gotta tell you, I'm not doing a lot of driving. The lane keeping assist is on. I just have pretty much a token hand here on the steering wheel, and it does a good job of not, even if you don't pay too much attention to it, it doesn't ping pong too much between lanes. It does a good job. Now, I do have adaptive cruise control on at the moment, and that system is also very good. This is a step up from what Hyundai and Kia originally did. It does a good job of maintaining an appropriate distance to the car in front of you. It doesn't leave, its smallest setting is not so large that you're inviting everybody to cut up in front of you. It also does, as this car just pulled out in front of me, it just slowly came up to it, just as you would while driving, as opposed to dropping anchor, slamming on the brakes. It looks pretty far ahead despite what your setting is. It drives more like a normal person. It's a good job. The other nice thing about it is it will work in stop and go traffic. Last night I was in rush hour traffic in Salt Lake City. Did a great job of just kind of puttering along for you. That part autonomy that at least on the highway when you're stuck in mind-numbing traffic after a long day of road tripping through Utah, or more likely after a long day of work, just handles most of the driving for you. And that way, autonomy makes a lot of sense. And in this case, Kia's system is very good. So not only does this car have a lot of features, it has well executed ones. Now, I was going to end the video there. However, I've just remembered and been reminded of another driving aid, and that is the driver inattention / fatigue monitor. It seems to be a little hyperactive. Now, that feature is standard on every Mercedes. I have driven many Mercedes, and I can say that it has never gone off on me. It would seem that I am quite attentive. The Stinger would disagree with that assessment. It has gone off on me quite a lot. Yesterday, at around 2:30, it repeatedly went off. I thought, okay, later in the day, I've been driving for a while, haven't had a coffee in a bit. I guess I could be doing something. I'm not nodding off here. I don't know. So actually, I did take a break about an hour later. Not exactly following its instructions, never mind. Now it has gone off on me repeatedly here. I've only been driving for an hour. I had a very restful sleep last evening. I've had my very unremarkable coffee. And yeah, it probably shouldn't be going off. I don't know if it's reading me in some way and not liking the polarized sunglasses. I don't know if it's because it's a little windy and the car is a little nervous. This car doesn't have the easiest straight line stability because it is quite sporty and it has this quick steering. I don't know what is going on, but in terms of the driver inattention monitor, I think it is crying wolf a little too much. Now, for most of this drive, I have been sticking to non-interstate highways. It's far more interesting that way. It's far more scenic. You see more things. It's better. But I actually do need to get to Portland eventually, so for here in Idaho, I'm sticking to Interstate 84, which does give me an opportunity to talk about the Stinger's overall comfort and highway performance. So, comfort, the ride. This is quite Germanic in feel. It's not going to beat you up. It's very well damped, even on some less than excellent pavement here in Idaho. But it is a little firmer. In fact, I think it kind of feels like a BMW from a generation or two ago. It's actually better, I think, than some sportier Mercedes of today. This does have an adaptive suspension. You can have it in comfort or sport mode. I'm in comfort right now, but it doesn't feel floaty or anything. This is a very well-tuned suspension. This car knows what it is. Now, I will say that because of the rather quick steering that is so good on those twisting mountain roads, here on the highway, it does require a lot more corrections. So it's very subtle, but it doesn't have that Autobahn slop, so to speak, that a lot of German cars do that allow you to just kind of sit here with a hand on the wheel and go as fast as you want in a straight line. It does require a little more attention, and perhaps that's why that driver inattention monitor was barking at me so much earlier. But in general, this is a very comfortable highway car. Let's see how far I've now gone. 805 miles. Quite comfortable, quite happy. It's great highway, long distance car. Well, I'm no longer in Idaho. I have arrived in Oregon. Of course, I still have a couple of 100 miles to go in Oregon, but hey, still. I've also exited the interstate, and I can tell you, I can't be any happier about that. The interstate was boring. This is a wonderful 2-lane road following a creek going through the mountains of Oregon's high desert. It's a spectacular road, and I tell you, the Stinger is happier about it too. This car isn't exactly the best on the interstate, if I'm going to be honest. It's, again, just a little nervous out there. But on a road like this, it is absolutely at home. It loves being here. That steering is so good on a road like this. It's so much fun, so communicative. Love it. The other thing I realized as I got off the highway and onto this road was just how much this doesn't feel like a sports sedan, but more like a modern GT car. Hey, how about that? Like the Ford Mustang. And I mean that as in the modern way that a Ford Mustang is now a really great driver's car, especially with the new adaptive suspension. This car has an adaptive suspension too, and I tell you, woo, what a fun car. Okay, so one thing I haven't talked about yet is performance. Stinger GT has a turbocharged V6 good for 365 horsepower. And when you use the included launch control, which is engaged through a whole song and dance I won't be trying right now, you can go from 0 to 60 in 4.7 seconds. Wow. But here's the thing, obviously when you're on a road trip, that doesn't come into play that often. What does come into play is passing power, especially when you're on a 2-lane road such as this. And I tell you, the Stinger has passing power. It also sounds pretty darn cool here. There actually is sound that gets pumped in, or piped, is more accurate to say, into the cabin. And actually, it increases when you put the car into sport mode. So, how about we put the car into sport mode and slow down here, and then a little louder. Now, let's talk about the transmission. It has an electronic shifter I'm not especially fond of, but nevertheless, this has an 8-speed automatic. It is designed in-house by Hyundai Kia. Does the job quite well, responds to your right foot quite immediately, as well as to the paddles, should you use them. There's fourth. And in general, it just doesn't draw a lot of attention to itself, which is really what you want from an automatic transmission. However, if this car had a manual transmission, I would absolutely adore it. So I wish it had one. Now, the Genesis G70 is apparently going to have a manual transmission, and that car is mechanically related to the Kia Stinger. So a guy can hope, right? Well, I'm here in beautiful Bend, Oregon. It's one of my absolute favorite places. That's the Old Mill District over there, and the Deschutes River is just through those bushes. Unfortunately, as great of a town as Bend is, a lousy place to take pictures of cars with the town in it. But nevertheless, I thought I'd take this moment to talk about some of the tech features here that I've been living with for the last 2 days here in the Stinger. Now, this is a touch screen right up here. Now, that's a good thing. Good to have a touch screen. Unfortunately, it's very far away. Bit of a reach there from where I'm sitting. I don't actually reach it. You have to reach forward. Ideally, there would be some sort of secondary controller here, but not really room for one. So, as it is, just a touch screen. Now, when you press up there, you have a nice general display here. You can still see your nav, what's playing on the satellite radio. You do have hard keys down here. That's a nice function. Let's press radio. And one thing I like about this is nice big buttons, easy to press, and you can see nice big area. Everything is right there on the screen. You can also go between those functions on the steering wheel, up, up, and up. Oops. It would help if you press the right button. There you go. Now let's go back to home. And then as you can see, this car has, there you go, Apple CarPlay, which is nice. It's pretty easy to go back and forth. You can go, there's your now playing, and there's your key. Go back to keyline pretty easily. Now there's only one USB port up front. There is one in the back. It's right here. And as you can see, this bin isn't very deep, and your wire kind of gets all smushed around here. Other tech things, that's a pretty broad digital area in the instrument cluster. We're getting to the end of the day here. I'm gonna get word salad. And then, if you can see it up there, there is the, oh boy, here comes the word salad, head-up display. That's the word. But here's the thing about the head-up display. If you were to wear regular sunglasses, such as these, you can see it. Unfortunately, if you wear polarized sunglasses, such as these, these, you can't see it. In fact, I was driving this car for most of the day on Thursday with these sunglasses on. I had no idea it had a head-up display. Something to keep in mind. Head-up display works okay, shows you the speed limit of the road you're on, your speed, as well as any navigation directions that might come up, as well as if you have a change in radio source. In general, tech works quite well in this car. Usually when you're just stuck in a car for 2 days, that's the kind of stuff that can drive you crazy. Nothing really drove me crazy. So I have left Bend, Oregon, and it's only 4:45, and it's only 3.5 hours to Portland. So I'm just gonna get this done right now. So although I said it was gonna be 3 days, I'm gonna do it in 2. But that means as the sun is going down, I'm gonna have to wrap this thing up. Now, perhaps not surprisingly, this grand touring car was indeed quite good on a grand tour, especially on one like this, where I stayed off the interstate as much as I could, which is a good thing because this car, as it turns out, wasn't that great on the interstate, not as relaxing as you'd probably hope. But on those country roads, on those winding mountain roads, it was absolutely fantastic. Really made the journey memorable. So much more so than just your average run-of-the-mill luxury car or mid-size sedan. And when you're going on a road trip, I think the car should be just as interesting as the journey itself. And the Stinger GT absolutely was.